Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today, we're talking about what it means to be purpose-built.
So those are like really simple, tools that you can use to identify what are my core values that then becomes an outpouring of who you are to everybody who walks in your practice door.
When your values are clear, your decisions are easy. And we talk about how we want to help our members make good decisions, not only in their financial life, but in their whole life. So every time we have an onboarding call with a new member, we like to start with a quote that Joe originally shared with us. It's by Roy Disney, brother of Walt, and it's, "When your values are clear, your decisions are easy." And we talk about how we want to help our members make good decisions, not only in their financial life, but in their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we don't know what's most important to us. We just show up every day and we're on reactive mode instead of proactive mode. So this is a big part of what we do, both in our company and with the people we work with. It's getting clear on those values, what's important, and where we're heading. So we want to talk about that today, how you can be purpose-built as a person, as a practice, as a company, and then how Terra Firma ties into that.
Yeah. And it's that quote was shared with me by one of my mentors, and it really has guided a lot of what I've done. And I think this, if you're a practice owner listening to this episode, this is really built for you. I think you're going to probably benefit the most from it. I would say just generally, everybody lives by a set of values, whether recognized or not. There are values that drive who you are. So the conversation we have with our members is, what's important about success to you? That's where the conversation starts. And from that conversation, we help them discover, many of them, what they feel like for the first time in an organized way is their value set. And that drives a lot of what we do with our members. We want to help you actualize those values. But when you look at from a company perspective, a lot of the work that we do at Terra Firma plays into business building. And when you have your company values, which are an offshoot of you and your values. But most people wait until they have a bunch of employees and things are chaotic and out of control. And they're like, okay, we need to have our company values. That's the wrong time to do that, right? Go into it, build, like you said, Aaron, purpose-built company. Be on purpose with this. And so I think today we can talk about a few of the really practical things that we help people do. And a lot of this stems from the work that we do with EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. And so we've got resources that you could even read if you want. Or if you want to hit the easy button, just engage with us and we can help you do this in your practice. But Bob, you've been really intentional with this, even just around Terra Firma. And I think some of the explosive growth that we have experienced is as a result of that company culture, value foundation. So maybe you can talk about it and then I can give some practical tips on how to do this.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think a company culture, the initial foundation of a company culture is its owner. And so and especially medical practices, right? We've gone to doctor's offices, and if there's a doctor's office we go to and it looks chaotic, the employees are dissatisfied or unhappy, and they're not saying that they are. You can just see their body language, their facial expressions, right? You can just feel the mood, and not every doctor's office is like that, of course. But that's a reflection of the leadership or lack thereof in the practice or in the business. And that comes down to what the values of those leaders want the culture to be like. And so one of the things, I do very intentionally is I read a crap ton. I'm always searching and looking, how can I improve myself so I can be better at what I do in my craft, not even just from the tax planning side, which I do also, or any of the other assets, but just me individually, because all those things aren't going to matter with somebody if somebody doesn't know who I am. And I shouldn't be in a position to tell somebody who I am. They should know that when they're in the presence. Right. And I think that value comes across in who you are in a kind of a telepathic, if I could use that, or spiritual connection. And so, Joe, you and I have been very intentional of how we wanted to continue to build this culture. You and I are very much aligned, and which we both believe that God has brought us together to continue to build this business that He wants us to build. And we choose people that are like-minded in this desire of values that we have. And
Right.
when we bring these folks on, it becomes an easier connection because they see and feel, and they either want to be part of that or they don't. We don't actually have to make that decision.
Right.
Right. It's very easy. Either they reject it or somebody really wants to be involved.
Right.
And that is the intentionalness that you're talking about. It's not easy. But what we wanted to do also was make sure that if we were going to teach other people to do this, we needed to make sure we do it first. So
Right.
because one of the things I heard the other day, it's easy to tell the truth because it's easy to remember what happened. Right. And the reality is that comes across with what we're trying to accomplish from a values perspective. It's easy to accomplish things as a community or as a group of coworkers and individuals. I mean, we're all over the country.
Right.
Think about that, right? I mean, Megan's a different state. You guys are both in different states. David's in a different state. Charles is in a different state. Kenny's in a different state. I'm different, right? We're all over the country. So what connects us? It's that cultural value. We're all
Right.
one mind thinking of accomplishing the same thing. And we make that decision also based on trying to figure out who we want to work with. So we're not fighting that battle. We're improving and enhancing that battle. Hence why we work with physicians and medical professionals.
Right. And that became part of our DNA. We made, I mean, Bob, I remember the conversation so clearly when we were making the decision, do we want to focus on, with near exclusivity, working with doctors? And we hashed out kind of the pros and cons, and if we do this, and candidly, to me, it felt scary to make that myopic decision of we're just going to work with doctors, because by default we're saying no to everybody else. But what you brought out is we have servants' hearts. We want to serve our members, and doctors are such a great representation of that servant's heart. You give up a decade of your life, you go get everything that you need to in order to serve society. Well, yes, you get paid well and there's accolades and you're acknowledged, by a lot of people as the cream of the crop, but you sacrificed a lot so that you can serve people. And so when we made that decision, as scary as it was, it became part of the foundation and the values of Terra Firma, is we want to serve other people to fulfill who they were created to be as servants of other people. So it really is prolific the way these values can play out. So I'd love to talk about some practical tips and what we do with practices when we're looking at this. Yeah. And Bob, to your point, it's like the what people experience from you, from your office, or from even you as a person, is just an outflow or an outpouring of what exists already. For most people, there is no foundation. So it's just you experience it's not chaos, but it's eclectic. It's like, oh, they meet with Sally versus John and they get 3 different experiences. How about a unified experience? Think about the difference between going to like the Four Seasons versus Best Western. Not knocking Best Western, but those employees treat their people differently. Right? They engage with people differently. You go all the way down to like the fast food chains. There's a difference between going to Chick-fil-A and I don't know, pick a different. It's like they hire people very intentionally based on a set of values. So the question go ahead.
I was going to say, it's important that you're bringing this up, because we as a group are reading a book called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, and he uses stories of different experiences that people have to change that moment in time, that singular moment or that singular event that affects them. One of the examples that he uses right in the front of the book, as you guys probably remember, is the red phone.
Yes.
right?
Popsicle phone.
Popsicle
Popsicle
hotline.
phone. I love it, right?
Mhm.
Like
You're at by the
people
pool.
should this is something to pay attention to. And before you continue, Bob, I just want to bring weight to this. Oftentimes as business owners, we feel like everything has to be perfect. Every little thing has to be perfect. That's not the case. A few things. So I want you to share this experience as an outpouring
Yeah.
of it, but pay attention to this.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So there's this a large hotel chain, very high end. But what's very interesting is by the pool, they have a red phone. And when you're by the pool, you can pick up this red phone, and it's the popsicle phone. And what happens is somebody from the kitchen brings out a popsicle on a silver platter, wearing white gloves, giving the flavor that individual chose, that popsicle at the poolside, right? And it's funny because when they surveyed people, their experience at this particular hotel, the thing that they all talked about as a family was the popsicle phone, the red phone.
And that was the most significant memory. But mind you, this hotel is right next to Disney. So people
Yes.
who stay there are all going to Disneyland. And the kids' most significant memory was not the rides, was not Mickey Mouse, was not the fireworks, was not the show. It was the popsicle hotline.
Mhm.
I mean, and it's so important when we're serving other people, like that hotel is. They're serving people. People are staying there to go do something else. And so while their experience staying there away from home, their comfort, their security, they've created this memory
Yeah.
for people to make them feel comfortable and feel at home. And as a medical practice, or as a practice of serving others, there's little things that we can all do that will allow that connectivity and that specialness happen. But this isn't something that you and I would just know. That's why we read books as a group, is because we want to feed ourselves so we can be better at what we do when we serve others, right? We want to continue to enhance. So go ahead, Joe.
So how do you, I guess the question is that people are going to ask is,
Aaron, you want to chime in?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's about the standards you set too. It's about standards for yourself and for your practice. And now that we work with so many doctors and we hear these things, I know we all talk personally about our own experiences and how much we notice now when we go in. And like, for example, I walk in the door and the person doesn't look up and greet me right away. It's little things like that, because that popsicle, you get a red popsicle, you take it out of it, the wrapper yourself out of your freezer, or you're getting it on a silver platter. Like it tastes the same. It's the same popsicle, but you are going to remember the experience of how it made you feel to be so well taken care of. I had an example. I volunteer at my church on the weekends, and something I heard, it's just like a standard we set. It's like when a new person comes and they're asking for like, where is the bathroom, or where is the kids, or, where do I go for this? We drop everything and we don't point them over there. We walk them, we escort them. And so what impression is that going to make for someone that they felt taken care of versus they just felt like, oh, we were flippant with them. And so it's establishing standards like that, both in your practice and in your life. Like, how do I do things? How does my staff do things? And if it's below that, something needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, it's an outpouring of you. So you are the leader of this. So some of what I want to talk about in what we're about to talk about now comes from the book Traction and the system called EOS. If you're a practice owner, this is a must read. This is not like I'm recommending it. Stop the presses, deploy these tools. But when it comes to building company culture and your core values and that sort of thing, there's some easy things that you can do. So I'll give you a few practical tips to help uncover what your core values are. First step is evaluate all of the employees that you've ever had in your practice and just rank them. Just put them in order. And really you're looking for the top maybe 3 to 5 employees that you've had. Once you have that list identified, what you want to do is go through each of those employees and write down, what was it that put them at the top of that list? What was it about that person that put them at the top of that list? And what you'll start to uncover is themes. you'll start to see, oh, this, this, and this is what they all shared in common that put them at the top of the list. That becomes the foundation to your core values. So just, pick 3 to 5 of those core values that you feel is pertinent and write those down. Then you can, if you choose to, expand upon those. So maybe, one of them might be, we could talk about our own company core values, right, at Terra Firma. One of them is tenacity and grit. That's kind of the final one for us. But what I appreciate about people is people who are tenacious and they have grit. It's like they're willing to do the hard work. And it becomes very apparent when somebody doesn't have that. It's like, oh, you weed people out, that way. So I think it's a really simple exercise that you can go through is rank your employees that you've ever had. One's at the top of the list. Ask yourself, what was it that put them at the top of the list? Drill that down to the themes that you noticed, maybe 3 to 5 things that you notice, and then perhaps expand a little bit on that. The second part of this process is to ask yourself now for each of your employees. So now you're going to use that litmus test to evaluate everybody. And the 3 questions you want to ask is, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? So with their function specifically, do they get it? Like, do they get the job? Do they could get it, but maybe they don't want it. They're like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, great. Let's find a different, like if they match your core values, but they're in the wrong seat. Okay, great. Let's get you into the right seat. And then third one is, do they have the capacity to do it? Like, is their skill set matching for that? So those are like really, really simple, tools that you can use to identify what are my core values that then becomes an outpouring of who you are to everybody who walks in your practice door. I'll give you a quick example. One of the things that I had in one of my previous companies, one of the core values was no drama. Like that drove me nuts. Any kind of drama is not tolerated here. And then it becomes glaringly obvious when people are inducing drama. We know when stuff is just happening and people are dealing with stuff versus they are creating drama. When that's the case, it's very easy to have a conversation. Hey, your behavior is not matching our core values. Your behavior needs to be corrected. So really, really simple things like that. One final tool, if I can, because I think it'll be helpful to people, is how do we get these core values not to just be something that sits on a corporate wall and everyone ignores? It's how do you bring those core values now to life in your practice? And one of the things that I like to do is having an employee recognition, like a self-recognition program. So what we do is literally just print out the core values on a piece of paper, cut them up so they're like one sheet of paper becomes 4 of them. And what people can do is say, noticing about other people. So I, as an employee, might notice that, Bob, exuded our core value of tenacity and grit. And so I could write down Bob's name. It's who I'm recognizing. I can write down the incident that I noticed, Bob did this, and here's what I observed about him. And then I submit it to Bob's supervisor, to my supervisor, which my supervisor then gives that to Bob's supervisor and then gets acknowledged to Bob. So it's like this one message ripples throughout the whole organization, noticing this. And it's not managers noticing employees. It's employees noticing each other. And that really brings these core values to life. So some simple tools that I hope will help.
I'd like to share an actual story that an experience that Joe, you and I experienced with one of our members when we were initially talking to him and going through that onboarding process. The word he used was drama. Right. His practice was littered with drama to the point to where really he just doesn't want to go to the office. Right. And so with your leadership, you have been able to turn that drama not only for him and what he experienced or saw, his perception of what was going on from his situation, but within the practice itself, to where people that were the dramers, those folks that the dramatites were I was going to say executed. They weren't executed. They exited. They left on their own.
Mhm.
They realized the culture was shifting and changing, and that was they were no longer in control over that.
Right.
And so that affected them enough. So when you change a culture, a lot of times what we feel like, if we're fearful of that leadership or that management of that, we have to fire people or get rid of people or whatever term you want to use, many times when you change the culture to what you want it to be, truly based on your values, those people will just leave on their own.
Right.
They fire themselves, essentially.
Correct.
And that's essentially what's happened in that practice. And all of a sudden now you're able to bring in more people, that because there is a culture, there is a foundation. Now you're bringing like-minded, and that practice is seeing a lot. I got goosebumps because we're actually experiencing and seeing, not just in our business, us doing it, but another practice having a lot of issues is now thriving and seeing those situations change.
Right.
And it all leads to a bottom dollar.
And
All of
maybe
that.
this might be fun to do. So I want somebody to generate a comment on one of our videos. No, none of y'all are commenting. Y'all need to comment and tell us what you're thinking. But here's what I will offer. If you comment on this video, just comment help. That's all you need to write. And we will reach out to you, and I will spend some time, and I will help you drill down what your core values are and how this will play out. We'll probably record it so you can share whatever you want to share. But I'd love to use this as an opportunity to actually help somebody. One of y'all need to drop in the comments that you'd like some help. You need to be a practice owner, and you want to shift your company value, or the company culture, and your core values is where I think it usually starts. So if you want to take us up on that, I don't care if it's 2028 or 2029 when you watch this video, like, you drop the comment help, and we'll reach out.
That's a great offer, Joe. And I have experienced your coaching over quite a few years now, and it's pretty powerful. And what we started this with was this idea of being purpose-built. And that has really come out of so many of these conversations we have that say, well, you guys, this just seems too good to be true. Or I feel like this is what I've been looking for, but I didn't think it existed. But we say it's not too good to be true. It's simply purpose-built. And it's based on many years of diving deep, Bob understanding the pains that you have and putting something together that actually solves it. And we know how at Terra Firma to begin with the end in mind, with that being peace of mind. We just want our members to feel complete peace of mind when it comes to their taxes and their financial life. And so everything we do aligns to that end. And so when you figure out where you want to go, what you want people to say about you as a person or your practice, then you're much more likely to get there and make people feel that way. So some of the work we do with you is like you said, helping you define that. So we hope you will take us up on that. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time. And until then, go be a Wealth Maverick.